Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of Sports Spectrum's podcast is brought to you by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. A hope more powerful than poverty. We love Compassion. We love what they stand for. We love having them as partners and sponsors here at Sports Spectrum. And the difference that they're making in the world is literally changing lives, changing children's lives. 2 million children and their families no longer struggling alone for basic needs like healthcare, education, food, and help. That's what Compassion's about. And these kids, they're encouraged, sometimes for the first time, to dream, to imagine, to learn, and to grow. And Compassion allows you and I to partner with them in making this difference in children's lives. I want to encourage you to check out the website, compassion.com/sportspectrum, compassion.com/sportspectrum, and pray about it. Pray about releasing a child from poverty today. Really excited to welcome Rapolas Ivanuaskas to the Sports Spectrum podcast. Rapolas plays college basketball at Colgate University, and he's pretty good at it. In 2018-2019, Rap was the Patriot League Player of the Year in leading Colgate to the Patriot League Championship and a trip to the NCAA Tournament, the big dance. And they did everything they could in their first round matchup with Tennessee, falling just a little bit short. And circumstances may have been a little different if certain things had went differently. And we'll talk about that with Rap here on the podcast. But they gave everything they could in their first trip to the big dance in a long time. And Colgate is looking to now return to the NCAA tournament in 2019-2020. And I just love this time of year. College basketball is back. You got football, of course, and you got basketball and the NBA back. You got baseball just ending, and now you have college basketball returning. And Rapolas Ivanuaskas is somebody you need to keep your eye on watching Colgate this year, Colgate University, play some basketball. But Rapolas has an amazing story. He really does. You're gonna find his journey fascinating, coming from Lithuania and speaking 5 languages. I actually thought he spoke 4 languages. In my interview, you'll hear me ask him or mention that he speaks 4 languages. He actually told me after the interview that he speaks 5 languages: English, Lithuanian, French, Spanish, and Russian. And guess what? He's actually learning a 6th language now, as he's learning German. And I told him when our interview was done, I said, maybe you do realize this, but learning to speak all these languages allows you an opportunity to tell people about the gospel of Jesus with communicating with them in ways that I can't. And so I'm really excited. Rap's got a great story. He really is as transparent a guest as we've had on, because he talks about, those highs, those mountaintop experiences, both as a basketball player and as a believer. But he also takes us into those valleys, those very difficult times that, God kind of, I guess, allows all of us to have to go through. And he speaks very transparently about those valleys in a situation that took place at the NCAA tournament last year, which wasn't his best basketball moment, and certainly moments where he had to come out of transferring from Northwestern, where he was recruited. He was a top 100 recruit coming out of high school in Illinois, and basically missed his first 2 seasons of basketball with Northwestern before transferring over to Colgate. So listen to this awesome story of Rapolas Ivanuaskas from Colgate University here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Rapolas, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It's really an honor to be able to share my story and talk to you.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you're here. Excited for the season. The fact that we're talking and it's the fall and college basketball is upon us. The season is upon us. Really excited for this year and watching you play your senior year. How ready are you for this season? You got to be kind of pumped, huh?
I am really excited, honestly. This is kind of like my second season actually playing, so I feel like I still have a lot of college basketball left to play. And also just this group of guys that we have, just a really special group, the most cohesive unit I've been a part of thus far in my basketball career. So there's a lot to be excited about. We have a great schedule and a great group of guys I'm ready to go to battle with. So
It's actually, and I said senior year, Rapolas, but it's actually kind of not. You said it's your second year playing, because I know you had a couple of years at Northwestern where you didn't actually, you had some injuries and you didn't get a lot of game time. And last year, certainly when you did get that game time in Colgate, you made the most of it and Patriot League Player of the Year. You're called a senior, but you might not quite be a senior. Explain that.
Yeah, so it is a little bit of a complicated situation. Academically, I definitely am a senior, and I'm on pace to graduate this coming May. But in terms of eligibility-wise, I have 2 redshirts that I filed my freshman and sophomore year due to back-to-back shoulder surgeries. So last year was actually my first year really playing college basketball healthy. So in terms of eligibility, I believe I have this year and another year, or it might be this year and 2 more years. I'm not exactly sure how the rules and regulations work with the NCAA, so I'll have to look into that. But otherwise, I'm just focused on this year, and we'll see what opportunities arise.
Absolutely.
After this year.
Yeah, I mean, God only knows what the future holds, certainly, and so we'll keep an eye on that and watch that. I just want to kind of clear that up for those listening who might be like, wait a minute, he just played his first full year, but they're calling him a senior. So I wanted to make sure we cleared that up. Rap, you've developed, I guess, in many ways, and doing my research and following you guys last year, a sort of a cult following in your first year as that junior transfer. Like I said, you won the Patriot League Player of the Year. You won the Patriot League Tournament, a trip to the Big Dance. Describe that first season for you at Colgate and those fans that have really embraced you.
It really is so hard to explain because it's such a surreal feeling. The best way I'd put it is that I really didn't expect for all this to happen. And the word I'd use to describe that is just faithfulness. I would say one God's faithfulness to me in that hard time of being injured for 2 straight years, and me being faithful, one to Him and also just to the game of basketball. I think my mantra was just to not stop working, and I know that my dividends would pay off hopefully, and basically this year was such an incredible feeling. Going from not knowing if I was going to be able to play. Well, one, I didn't even really know I was going to transfer, and then I transferred. That all happened very quickly. I didn't know I was going to play. Filing several waivers with the NCAA in order to be able to play, finding out on the day of the game, and everything that happened, it almost feels like kind of like a little bit like a movie or something. It's so unexplainable, and I would have never imagined having this kind of year with such a great group of guys and coaches, and it really is something so honoring. Like the embrace that I felt in the community at Colgate and in Hamilton was seriously so great. I have so many friends here and so many people in town that know me and I know them, and I have great relationships with, and that's something that'll last me much longer than 1 year of basketball will. And just the winning streak we went on in the season we had was one really to remember, and one of my best memories I'll ever have, really.
With the good, sometimes comes the bad. We all go through valleys. You mentioned the injuries at Northwestern, but even last year, as great as it was, it didn't end great for you. You got pink-eyed the morning, I believe, waking up of the NCAA tournament game against Tennessee. Take me through that morning and maybe a little bit of the lessons you learned, because I believe adversity is our greatest teacher, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm really fascinated to kind of know, as great as last year was, there's still a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth in the way it ended, and you weren't able to contribute in the way that you certainly probably wanted to. What happened that morning exactly? And take us through sort of some of the emotions and the wrestling maybe you had to do with God going through that game.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is the interesting part about that story is that there is kind of a lot of misconstrued information. I had, so during the championship game, that was mid-March, the Patriot League championship game, I had the day before I had gotten pink eye. And that was bothering me through kind of that day and a little bit during the game. And yeah, that was certainly annoying, and that was fine. I went through that. But what I didn't know is I actually had a chronic eye issue that I've had for a very long time, supposedly, and I'm still dealing with now. So on the day of the NCAA tournament game, I had woken up. I felt completely fine. I'm going to the arena we were playing in Columbus, and when I'm there, I don't wear my contacts that often. I try to refrain from that. I just wearing my glasses unless I have to do,
Yeah.
unless I have some athletic responsibility. So about an hour to the game, I try to put in my contacts, and they weren't feeling great. They were kind of gnawing in my eyes, and it was making it hard to see. So I took them out, let my eyes rest. I talked to my athletic trainer, and she's like, try to put them in one more time. I tried again; they wouldn't go in. So then my athletic trainer Leslie, she had washed out my eyes with a certain kind of disinfectant,
Yeah.
and that helped for a little bit. But I'm pretty blind without my glasses or my contacts, so I had to get them in. I tried a different pair of contacts, and that honestly had just made it worse. I was experiencing sharp pain in my eyes, dizziness, and extreme headache. So it was by that time it was game time, and I'm kind of one of the guys to speak to our team before we go out into the game, and I was so disarrayed in the fact that I couldn't even listen to my thoughts. All that was on my mind was like I really can't see right now. My head is killing me, and I feel so disoriented. So basically that game, I'm warming up, and I look into the stands. I see my parents. I find that's just something I do before every game. They give me confidence. They give me strength. I see my parents, and they're so happy for me that I'm in this opportunity and in this moment. And meanwhile, what they don't know is that I can't really see.
Yeah.
And as the sweat's going in my eyes, and as the warm up's continuing, I feel completely out of it, and I don't know what to do. My coaches know, my teammates know what's going on, but we really don't know what's wrong with my eyes. So I tried playing the first half. I missed some shots. I make some some mistakes that just I don't think I would have made if I had my good eyes. So I was in a lot of pain, and then starting, I think I got subbed out at the end of the half, and then I talked to our athletic director, Dr. Moore, and she's a fantastic woman, and I talked to her, and I told her what was going on. My parents, didn't understand what was going on, so I asked for her, if there's any way I could talk to my dad at halftime. And she being the amazing woman she is, she walked up into the stands, this huge arena, and got my dad. And we were talking at halftime. I was telling him, my dad, I can't see. Like, I can't see. I can't see the ball. Everything's blurry. My head's killing me. Like, I don't know what to do. And so what we do is, as we get the halftime talk, I'm in a different room with our athletic trainer, my dad, and Dr. Moore, and it was obviously an awful situation, but having my dad and Dr. Moore and Leslie there made it a lot better for my soul. I think Dr. Moore started praying with me for my eyes, and that was an unforgettable experience. And we were washing on my eyes to try to see if I was going to feel better, but honestly, it started becoming more and more irritated because of the condition that I have that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
So basically, I decided not to play in the second half because at that point I couldn't even open my eyes. So I kind of sat there during the second half with a towel over my head in excruciating pain, not being able to open my eyes. And my teammate Sam Lindgren sitting next to me, I'd have to ask him, what the score was and what was going on in the game. And honestly, I don't even really remember that game that well. My memories kind of faded away from the medicine I took after and
Yeah.
from the pain. But the one, obviously the feeling I had was just incredible. Well, one pain, but the other just being disappointment. And as I wake up, I wasn't thinking that night, but as the pain calmed down and I woke up the next morning, I was in such a deep hole, and it's one of those things where I wish it was something like my ankle or my shoulder or something that I could play through, but this one I just felt like I couldn't play through, and
Yeah.
I kind of found myself in this hole and was just asking that question of why God, like I feel like we've all been to that point where something happens that's completely out of our control, and we're just forced to kind of be like children in a way and be like, why, God? Like, why this day? The one day that I have, to make a mark and to have a great game and help our team is like, why God? Why do my eyes hurt this day? Why are you taking me out this day? And I'm asking that question. And one of the people that's extremely close to me and is kind of a spiritual leader to me is my AAU coach, Steve Pratt, who's like another father to me. And he's calling me and he told me, as bad as it may seem and as bad as you may feel, like God has a plan, and you won't see that right now, and you won't see that maybe months from now. You may never even see it in your lifetime, but like God has a plan. It's not that He did it, but we know that out of these bad situations, like God has the ability to make incredible things happen out of this, and I think that's what something that I have felt progressing out of that situation is day after day. I remember writing in my phone as I went home right after the Columbus game. I'm writing on my phone, just kind of explaining the details to myself, like of how awful I felt, but just saying at the end of the day, like, I know that God has a plan. Yeah. I know God is faithful. Like looking at my story, like I was healthy the whole year. I mean, I wasn't supposed to play this year. I wasn't supposed to do all these things, but God found a way. And why would I stop trusting Him now if He's done already so much for me that I would have never imagined in my entire life?
That's really good.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what I felt. And in terms of using that to my benefit, I don't think I've ever been more excited for a season than I am this year. Yeah. Kind of what fueled me last year was kind of just making a name for myself again and proving myself to be of worth on the basketball floor. And this year, it's like there's nothing I want more than to return to the NCAA tournament. And that's fueled by one part is by that eye injury, something I completely I could have never predicted, but here I am, and it's definitely fueled me and fueled my team to get back there again.
We'll get back to our conversation with Rapolas Ivanuaskas in just a second, but want to take a moment to tell you about Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. We love having them as sponsors because we believe in what they are doing and what they stand for, a hope more powerful than poverty. And it presents itself an opportunity for us to sponsor a child. That's really what this is about. It's $38 a month, and it's tax deductible. And your contribution connects a child living in poverty with a loving church-based child sponsorship program. Now, the support that you make, that $38 a month, provides medical checkups, nutritious food, educational assistance, mentoring, access to special services like surgeries, health and hygiene training. Most importantly, every child will hear about Jesus Christ and be encouraged to develop a lifelong relationship with God. It's $38 a month, tax deductible, basically $3 a day. We spend that on a coffee every day, and an opportunity to release a child from poverty. Go to the website and check it out for yourself, compassion.com/sports-spectrum. You'll see a list of children there from places like Rwanda, Ethiopia, Bangladesh, Haiti, Nicaragua, Colombia, Mexico, just children, all ages, all boys, girls, you name it, all nationalities, just waiting to be released from poverty. Check out the website, compassion.com/sports-spectrum. Pray about it and consider sponsoring a child today. Let's get back to our conversation with Rapolas Ivanuaskas from Colgate University here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Your story kind of is a fascinating one from where it stems with your parents. You mentioned your parents in the stands and kind of looking to them for inspiration. Give a little bit, maybe a Cliff Notes version, if you will, or go as long as you really need if you want, but kind of the background. I know you speak 4 languages, which is awesome. You're 21 years old and you speak 4 languages, which is pretty cool, but that stems from kind of the background that you came from, including your parents. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up my parents. They definitely are one of the most important parts of my life. So I was born in Lithuania, and my parents grew up in the Soviet Union. So that was a very tough upbringing for them. And the funny thing is like they've gone through so many terrible and hard experiences in their life, just being where they're from, that it's just like I can't really complain anything to them. It's like
Yeah.
I kind of give some complaints about school or about basketball or something, and then they'll say, hey, like when I was your age, I had a wife, I had a kid. This is my dad. I had a wife, I had a kid. I was working a job before class and before basketball practice. I was a Division I athlete, and I was, I had to take care of you. And I'm like, man, I could not. I know when I complain, I'm like, oh, I'm taking extra class in basketball. It's really taking up my schedule and everything. I think about my dad. He's like, my dad had to take care of a kid, and he had a family. Like that's kind of the mentality that we've had is just we're a hardworking family. I mean, my parents came. My mom not really speaking English. My dad's English was okay, but kind of living in that kind of I guess you can call it like an American dream of coming here. My dad got a degree of completely something different than what he's doing now, and he started his own business. And my mom is working and just trying to I get not to survive, but just kind of make it. Some opportunities that you wouldn't get in Lithuania that you get here. And that's kind of what I've learned from them, is just to kind of, put your head down and work. And that's something that I've definitely taken to the basketball floor, is just my parents' mentality of working and their support as well. I have to say, like during those really tough times, like I had, my senior year, there was definitely a time in my life where I was, extremely like an extreme point of doubting myself and lack of confidence. And that was also a time where I didn't know Christ either, but it's just a time of kind of darkness, especially my freshman and sophomore year at Northwestern. There was a lot of good that came out of it, but having back-to-back injuries on the same shoulder and the support I got from them was something that I'm forever indebted to them. I mean, I lived close to home and I was able to see them a lot, and they did absolutely everything and beyond to take care of me. And they're honestly, I can't even find the words to describe it, to thank them for what they've done to me. And just extremely, extremely grateful for the sacrifices they made for me to take care of me and kind of growing up in this way. Like I grew up in a house. It was me, my mom, my dad, my little brother, my cousin, my other cousin, my aunt, my uncle, my grandma, my grandpa, in a small house in the suburbs of Illinois, and we suburbs of Chicago. I'm sorry, and we, that's the way I kind of grew up, kind of like in a very close knit and a very. I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of money either, so it was very like we had to work. We had no other choice. So
yeah. Tell me about that faith you talked about. You said you had some dark times, and I know your faith is very important to you. We love sharing testimonies here on the podcast. Share with us your testimony.
Yeah. So I think a good starting point for me is kind of to go off my parents. My parents, like I said, grew up in the Soviet Union, and there they never really had the opportunity to learn about Christ, and because religion was outlawed in the Soviet Union, it was all for the socialist state, and it wasn't for any sort of God, or whether you celebrate through Catholicism or a Reformed church. There wasn't any opportunity for that.
Yeah. So
I never really got the opportunity. I mean, we'd go to church on Christmas and Easter, but I never really got the opportunity to learn from them and learn about the gospel. And so that leads me to my senior year of high school. I had transferred from Barrington High School to a boarding school in New Hampshire called Brewster Academy with a really great coach. And there, being far away from home for the first time in my life, kind of in the middle of nowhere, I kind of was realizing like something's really missing in my life. I don't know what it is. And that void, what it was, I had always filled it up with basketball. And throughout high school, I'd been pretty good at basketball. I was getting looked at by some schools and had a pretty good career at Barrington. But when I got there, and a lot of people were as good as me or even better than me, I was kind of like, what am I doing? Like I'm not where I want to be in basketball. I don't have my family with me. Like there's just this huge void in my life, and I was in a battle of finding joy and finding happiness. And so that leads me to my freshman year at Northwestern. I came in with a torn labrum in my left shoulder. So about it got to the point where every other day my shoulder would go in and out of its socket. And I kind of had a rough start. Absolutely, I did. And I was stubborn and didn't get surgery till a bit later in October. I tried to play through it, but my morale was completely diminished. And because of that void that I told you, I filled up with basketball. When you put all your eggs in a basket, which like you put all your eggs in a basket that's to something that's so fickle, like your whole mood can shift and your whole mentality can just change. And that's what happened to me. When the biggest thing in my life isn't going for me, then who am I? That's been my identity. That's my identity my whole life. And I didn't know where to go. But what's something amazing is, and I'll never regret ever going to Northwestern because of the people I met there. And I met someone, his name is Jamie Borchik, and he is one of the leaders of Athletes in Action, AIA at the Northwestern campus. And he talked to me, first couple of meetings, we were just getting to know each other, really great guy. And we started talking about God a little bit, and I was like, I've never really thought about it. I never really thought about Jesus. I never really thought about God. And we were talking. He invited me to some of the meetings we had at Tuesdays on Tuesdays, and that really, really clicked with me. There was a group of people, like a little background on that. The life I was living, that was in I think midwinter of 2016, maybe 2017, I think. Before that, the life I was living as well, like I didn't like it all. Kind of the college life and going out and all that, and it just seemed to me like, what am I doing? What's my purpose? I try to fill that hole of basketball that was missing with other things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I just felt so empty. So that, I think God's timing on that was just completely perfect. Like I was kind of destroyed in my morality and in the way I felt, and God built me right back up. And I think that me going to those Tuesday meetings and seeing people that were so incredible and so serious about their faith and the joy they got from their faith and being around other Christians, it kind of, the phrasing I use on that is kind of like a righteous envy,
Yeah.
It's like envy obviously not being a good thing, but when you're envying some people like that, like the things they have, like that relationship with God, like, wow, like I want to be that happy. I want to have that relationship with God. There are people like that also played at Northwestern, and that were very successful in their sports as well. Like one of my good friends to this day his name's Austin Carr, and he's a wide receiver for the Saints.
Yes, I know Austin. Austin's a good friend.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Great guy.
Like honestly, probably you ask anyone, he's one of the best people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast. He's fantastic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's great. And Austin really, really, really poured into me as well, and other people there about this relationship with God. And one day, you just gotta say it. You got to take that leap of faith. For that was February 2nd of 2017, and I was with Jamie. We were sitting in the old Wall Shrine Arena at Northwestern, and I was just like, you know what? I'm fed up with the way I'm living. I'm fed up with living in this like kind of like this earthly way, and I want to try out having a relationship with God. I really do. And it seemed to me like there was no other way, and I prayed that prayer of faith, and it's not like my life transformed that very day, and it's not like I felt completely different that very day or even the next week, but being around those people, being around people like Austin and people that in AIA really, really shaped my life. And I grew to an understanding of who Christ was. I started praying regularly. I started journaling some. I started, attending church regularly, and that completely changed my life. And the thing is then all my eggs were in the basket of Christ.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is about that is that's not fickle. That's the thing that never changes. Like God has never changed. He never will. So what better thing can I depend on? You know what I mean? So it's like from then I obviously started growing my faith immensely, and I was still dealing with an awful time. I mean, I was still injured. I had just gotten we went to the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history, and I didn't really get to be a part of that because I didn't play. And I still felt like, man, like, okay, like I didn't get to play, but my time will come. Like, God's faithful. I know this, I've read this, I know this, and I have faith in it. And even things started even getting worse. Like so that, I think it was June or July of that summer after my shoulder surgery, I dislocated my shoulder again, the same one. And I was stubborn again. I said, I'm going to play. But God was like, no, your time's not here yet. You have to get surgery again. You're going to have to go through exactly what you went through last year with being out and seeing your teammates play. You're going to have to sit on the sideline, and you're going to have to do this, and that. And then again, I'm at that point like, why, God, why? Like, I'm ready. I've been faithful to you. You've been faithful to me. This is how this works. This is how it's going to happen. But God's like, no, Rap. Like, that's not your plan. And you have to listen to me. And that's the greatest thing I could have ever done. I went through the pain again of getting another surgery. And from there, I ended up transferring, and obviously there was a lot of pain within transferring, a lot of heartache. But again, I'm like, I still have this voice. The Spirit's moving in me, saying, this is the right thing. This is the right thing. Like, trust me. I have great things for you. And I trusted that. And, even here, like, being acclimated to a new school, not knowing a whole lot of people, and taking new classes and all that, obviously that's pretty hard, but there's no bigger salvation than I got from having that relationship with Christ. And even leading up to that day, where I had, I think, 3 waivers were denied that whole fall when I was trying to play that year, because I had to sit out a year since I transferred. But on the day of our first game, we were at NJIT, and I'm not sad, I'm not happy, I'm just kind of in this calm mood. I'm like, whatever God's will be, that'll be it. And I got a call about 5-6 hours before the game, and our compliance officer, Erin DeMarco, she calls and she says, hey, like, you're playing tonight. You're playing your first college game tonight. And that so to cool. me,
that's awesome.
That to me was like the complete, how do I even put this? Like, the complete, like, faithfulness that God has had in me and I've had in God, and that, like, he fulfilled it. Like, man, he fulfilled it. Like all the patience and all the heartache I went through, like, all I had to do was be patient. I didn't have to do anything. Yeah. I just had to trust him and be patient. And that's what happened. I got to play, and through this year on the court, at the end of the day, it is just basketball, but obviously it being so important to me, God knows that. And he really revealed that to me. Like all you had to do was be patient. Like, I got you, basically. So,
but it's such a great testimony too, because there is a misconception, I think, from a lot of people who may not have the same faith or have any faith, that say, okay, it's great and it's awesome that you can say that because he allowed you to play, so you quote unquote got what you want. But you just went through a ton of things that were not you getting what you want: the shoulder injuries and the transfers, and certainly the eye and the incident with the NCAA tournament. So it's a test, I think, for a lot of people to realize, okay, God, you are good in the good and the bad. You don't change, and you are faithful whether I'm getting what I want from an earthly perspective or not. So Kudos to you, man, because that is not an easy thing to do, because a lot of people, when they share their testimony, they share all the good things. I trusted in God, and I've been at peace since, and I averaged 40 points a game, and I did this. And it's like, not necessarily. Who knows where you end up? I hope you average 40 this year and you end up in the NBA and you win the NCAA tournament. But if you don't, God doesn't change. And that's really my favorite part of your whole testimony, Rap, really, to be honest with you, is that you're trusting in him no matter what happens from a basketball perspective. And that's I have to imagine that's important for you to get across too, that, listen, I would love to be whatever God wants me to be, the desires of my heart, as they say, as a basketball player. But if it doesn't work out, God's still got a good plan, right?
Right. And not even a good plan. I think he's got an even better plan. Like
Right.
if
Exactly.
if that's not my calling, obviously I would absolutely love for that to be my calling. And I think God's showing me ways and how that could be my calling, and sharing my faith and sharing my testimony and all that. But at the end of the day, if I don't play basketball, like, the thing is, I'm not going to play basketball. Whether, like, the latest I retire is what, like 35, 36. I'm still going to have to not play basketball from 36 till the day I die, right? So it's
Yeah,
like,
trust me, I'm much older than 36, so you got a long ways ahead of you after that
right,
too.
right. So like my relationship with God doesn't change my relationship with God doesn't end when I stop playing basketball. Like,
Right.
it's still going. And the thing is too, it's like I said, with the whole eye thing, it's like I'm still asking God, and I think it's an important thing to do. I think I never want to have blind faith in a way where it's just like, whatever you say. I like to ask questions to God, like, why,
Yep.
like, please God, like, reveal it to me, try to make me understand, like, why. And I think what the thing that God has taught me the most is, like, just have patience, and you'll understand why. You may not, but just know, hey, like, it's what my plan is for you, and it's much better than what your plan is for yourself, obviously, because my first 18 years of my life, my plan for myself was not as good as God's plan for me so far. So
Absolutely. Well, this has been great. Thank you for being on the podcast. I definitely want to, after the year's over, I think have you back on and kind of see what the Lord did in this 2019-2020 season with Colgate, no matter what happens on the court. And certainly I hope great things do happen on the court. But let's leave it with this, because God teaches us something new every day. It's a question we ask to every guest on this podcast. So what are you learning from him right now? What is he teaching you today as you get ready for the 2019-2020 season?
Man, that's a great question. I'm learning right now. I recently actually just started journaling my prayers, which has actually helped me so much. I've been looking for more ways to pray. To pray more. I mean, I have been praying a lot, but just kind of in those times of good or bad, I want to write it down. I want to look back into what God's taught me, so I can really remember it. So yeah, just kind of journaling my prayers in that way, and also just kind of looking at my faith right now more as an external faith rather than an intrinsic, like an internal faith. I mean,
Yep.
because I feel like for the past year, I've kind of almost felt selfish in a way, just being like, like, God, what's in it for me? It's like, now it's like, God, how can I serve others? So like I said, I love to ask God questions, and I'm asking him right now. I'm like, God, how can I be serving others? How can I be more grateful? How can I serve you more? And what can I do for others on my team or in my community or my family or my loved ones? And that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now. And the funny thing is, it's not even really relating to basketball. It's just kind of my faith journey, and that's where I'm at right now. Is just asking God questions into how I can do better to serve others and to be a positive, positive salt upon others. So
Absolutely. And I'm sure God's going to place you in a great position of influence. He's already done that, and he's going to continue to do that. Rapolas Ivanuaskas. I want to get this name because I was practicing. Okay, I got to pronounce this name right. Rapolas Ivanuaskas, Colgate men's basketball player. We'll be watching you. I hope everybody listens, checks out, and kind of bookmarks Colgate this year, watches some of their games, whether it's online or on TV, and really excited for this season for you, buddy. I hope you do great, and let's check back in after the season's over and get you back on the show. But really do appreciate your time. Best of luck this year, and thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Hey, Jason, thank you so much for having me. I feel really honored that you had me, and thanks for Matt for bringing me on too. So
Absolutely. Matt Mooney, by the way. We'll give a shout out to Matt. Really appreciate him.
All right. Thank you, Jason, so much. Thank you for letting me tell my story.
Remember that name, Rapolas Ivanuaskas, 2018-2019 Patriot League Player of the Year, Colgate University. And yes, it's only November, but think about March Madness and maybe our favorite time of the year for sports. And how cool would it be to see Rapolas get that chance again to be in the NCAA tournament and maybe help lead Colgate to a first round win and kind of a Cinderella story at the big dance. So keep an eye on Rapolas, keep an eye on the Colgate University men's basketball team, in 2019, 2020. Really love talking to him, man. He is such a good kid. He really is. He spent about another 25 minutes after our interview was over just asking questions, him and I sharing stories, sharing our journey. And then he simply said to me, how can I pray for you? This kid's 21 years old and I'm much older, we'll just say in my 40s. And he wants to pray for me. And that really moved me, honestly. That was pretty awesome. And so I told him what he could pray for me about. And I'm going to encourage all of you listening to make sure we're praying for Rapolas. Because God's increasing his platform. And, listen, opportunities are going to come for him to share his faith. And I just pray that he does it in a loving and gentle way. And that he's prepared to give that reason to anyone that asks about the hope that is found within him, the hope of Jesus. So many thanks to Rapolas Ivanuaskas for being here on the podcast. If this is the first time you've ever heard Sports Spectrum, first of all, thank you for listening. Really, we do appreciate it. Thanks for finding us. Do us a favor, click that subscribe button on the app that you're listening to this podcast on so that you never miss an episode of Sports Spectrum's podcast. There's been over 400 interviews, so plenty of interviews to go back and listen to. Lots of great names, big names, sports, faith, Jesus. We've had authors on, we've had pastors on, we've certainly had coaches and players on, former and current people, and lots of people out there have been telling us how excited they are about this podcast. Now over 1 million downloads because we get to bring the stories, the impactful stories of sports intersecting with faith. So again, thank you for listening. Thanks for clicking that subscribe button. And I also want to encourage you to check out our website, sportspectrum.com. That's the place to go. Bookmark that website, whether it's on your mobile device or on your laptop or desktop computer, sportspectrum.com. There's stories every single day updating on the intersection of sports and faith. There's a daily devotional in the morning at 6 a.m. Eastern to kind of get your day ready and get your day right with God. And then every single podcast that we've done is also found on the website, sportspectrum.com. Lastly, you can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. I would love to hear your thoughts, your feedback on anything that you have going on in your life. If you have a guest idea like Rapolas that you want to suggest to us, please email me, jason@sportspectrum.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time here on Sports Spectrum's podcast. Have a great rest of your day.